Are you very hungry though?
Do you not want to eat your shoe?
Friends are looking tasty though.
Surely they are edible.
No, 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 no!
Monster, monster, cooking the monster. Cooking the Monster is proudly presented by Herbert, Matly, and Kistrix. Monster, monster, cooking the monster tonight. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Cooking the Monster. I'm Herbert Peppard, and I'm here with Matly and Kistrix from the Wild Wood Apothecary to talk about today's monster. And boy, do we have a doozy for you. It's another of the Undead series, and we're talking about the old crusty guys. You guessed it, the mummy.
Now here we're talking about mummies, but specifically we're talking about things that have been desiccated, had most of the moisture removed.
All of the meat has been preserved in some way, shape, or form, whether it's environmentally or deliberately. And all these things can, affect the flavor and what you're going to get out of it.
Absolutely. Now, in a lot of cases of the traditional mummy, a lot of the organs will be removed, stored in jars, canopic jars, other jars, or just discarded, depending on the culture it's from. Packed with some kind of herb, perhaps, packed with straw.
I mean, that leads me to the idea of actually deliberately preparing a mummy for feasting later in life.
One of the things that they used to use a lot in the preservation of human flesh, they used to use a lot of honey as well. So that would give it quite a sweet flavor, because sugar is a very good preservative.
And how do you think that would go over hundreds or thousands of years, being steeped in that kind of
Might end up
sweetness?
kind of like a candied bacon.
I guess if it was in a very dry environment, it would
Yeah.
absolutely be quite crackly and even all the way through, which would be interesting.
There is a tradition of the mellified man, which is where somebody would consume honey as they were older, pretty much until they died, and then you'd put them in a coffin for 100 years, and then after the 100 years, you crack it open, the honey would, so it's said, have medicinal values.
Environmental conditions that have kept it in good condition for so long are also usually keeping away all those harmful bacteria, because it's those bacteria that are really eating away and causing the decomposition process.
So if your meat survived that long, it's probably edible. Now, one very important thing to note, mummies, a lot of them, some of them, have been cursed with a condition called mummy rot. Now, specifically, a lot of them have a rotting touch, or rotting fists, or rotting, like a curse centered around the fists. Obviously, if you can detect the curse, you can detect the spell, you can not take the food from that area. If you
Well, wait a second. That means that you're going to have to, because a lot of the spells that we have access to, they're not going to remove the magical curse from the
No,
mummy.
they won't. You can remove a curse. It's a third level spell, but if you can't do that personally, maybe you can go to a town and do something. It'll kill you over a number of days. You've got some time to get out. So
But what you're saying is that these are location specific, and they can be removed, and then the rest of the body is good eating.
yes.
And that would come under our fugu category, if you're talking about that kind of mummy. But not all mummies have those curses, because as well as the magically entombed mummies, there are just naturally occurring mummies, or mummies which are based on religious practice that don't have those associations.
A zombie kept in a cold, dry alpine environment, for instance, would also have the same texture of flesh.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's a great thing to know if you are going to find a corpse that's well preserved. It's pretty much 100% safe to eat, as long as you, avoid certain areas. And all of the potentially damaging things, and like the brainstem to humans eating humans with regard to eating same species, would have died off long ago.
With some of the mummies as well, if we're finding them in a cold environment, I think we should probably be concerned about maybe they're going to have to keep refrigerated as well for them to maintain the consistency of their flesh, because once they start defrosting, I'm not quite sure it's going to
Also,
have the
with
same
bog
taste.
bodies, as soon as you take that out of the environment that it's in, where all of the oxygen is sucked out of it, it's going to start decomposing at a very rapid rate. So you want to get that on the fire straight away and really cook it really well, or just preserve it in some other way, shape, or form.
Well, with the ones that are frozen, we could probably remove the water from those, and then once it's frozen, then it's now dried as well, so it would keep for longer.
So kind of like a snap freeze dry effect.
Yeah.
Good use.
So obviously, the kind of meat you're getting from a mummy is traditionally, it's very dry. It's almost like a jerky or a biltong, one which had most of the moisture removed. So with that, how would you go about eating it?
Well, I mean, look, one of the greatest things that you can do with any mummy, and also the safest ones, if you get to it straight away, is just rehydrate it in a stew or a broth, make it into a very rich sauce, because much like a dry aged meat, all of that flavor just gets compacted and concentrated, and just re-moisturizing it and slowly letting the flavor leach out into something you're slow cooking for a while, or even pan frying with a bit of oil to let the flavors leach out into the oil.
I think with in the broths as well, maybe having a look at something like a red wine or a really strong ale as well. One of the herbs that I actually picked to go with it is hops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's a hypnotic and it's an anti-cardiogenic, so it actually stops rotting.
What do you mean when you say hypnotic?
Hypnotic, it kind of like puts you to sleep, puts you in a very sedative state as
Yeah,
well.
right,
So I think
right.
that kind of goes quite nicely there with the mummies and
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And the other one, the anti-cardiogenic, so it stops decay.
Oh.
Yeah, but I think also cooking
Would that
with
be a
something like
treatment that you would add prior to cooking, perhaps to
No,
preserve the flesh?
You could use it to preserve the flesh as well, to treat it, also give it the flavour long term. But then if we're also going to be cooking with the beer and the ale as well, we're going to be adding layers of complexity to the flavour.
So I imagine you get a really full-bodied flavor out of that,
Yeah,
sort of just
yeah.
rounding it out with the hops. But
Yeah.
sometimes you'd probably want to marry that with something a little bit zesty just to pick up that spice, don't you think? I mean, this is for me. You're going to hear this a lot from me. I love zesty things.
Yeah.
I just love a little bit of pick-me-up on the end of it. Some lemon, a little twist of this, a little twist of that.
Lemon's
Dill
also
is super nice just to bring out the extra flavor.
Dill would be really good.
What would you suggest?
So I was thinking if we were going for maybe like more like the meaty undead as well, we like the more meaty kind of
So your bog
zombies.
bodies,
Yeah,
that
those
kind of
kind of ones. We could be having a look at some like peppers as well. We've got different sorts of pepper. But the other one is ginger. It's really
yes.
good. And they're very good at toxin clearing herbs. If these things are also going to be upsetting any adventurers' stomachs as well. It's an anti-emetic as
excellent.
well.
And what does that mean?
So it's going to make us stop feeling nauseous and stop any vomiting.
Do you have any menu suggestions, Matly? I mean, what do you think the best flavor for your mummy would be?
I mean, the obvious one that we haven't really talked about is it is preserved like a jerky or a biltong or any of those other dried preserved meats, often with herbs included. You can just like cut a slice off, chew on it. Maybe just like as you're going through a tomb, looting priceless artifacts, just something to, keep your mind, like,
A little nibble.
have a little nibble. Yeah, it's preserved already, desiccated. It'd be tasty.
So, look, next time you're passing through those ancient crypts lined with coffins of various mummy parts, not just the whole mummies, but cnoptic jars, perhaps, a little bit of heart jerky, dogs, cats, birds, they're all in there. It's really quite the smorgasbord if you get the right crypt. But, with that in mind, we'd really like to hear what you have to say. I mean, what recipes would you like to bring to the party, or what preparation methods could you suggest for the old-fashioned mummy? Let us know in the comments below, and we look forward to hearing from you next time.
Monster cooking the monster tonight.